Hi everybody, it's Russ from My Hammers 11. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification so you're notified of any time we put on new videos. We have videos going up daily. Sometimes you lucky buggers, you get 2 videos a day. Lots of great guests coming up, particularly this week. Some cracking guests coming out, including today's guests. They are the first father and son duo we've interviewed actually as a pair. They don't need much introduction. It's Gary and Jonjo. How you doing, guys?
Yeah, well, thanks very well. Nice to be here.
Yeah. How's everything over there? How's everything with the weird world we live in at the moment for you guys?
Well, to be fair, I've been working way through it, and Jonjo's been off school, so I've dragged him into my place and got him to do a bit of work at my place.
Oh, good.
We've been working hard.
Oh, good. Yes, good. Me too. Yeah, some businesses obviously we're still working on my gaff as well. So yeah, no, it's one of those things. But you make do, don't you? You roll with the punches. Nothing to do about it. Obviously, you know, we hopefully we'll have some football coming up soon in a few weeks' time. But that's the whole idea of this channel, is to look back and sort of think about memories and sort of fun times, or maybe not fun times as it were. Mostly at the moment for us with West Ham and stuff like that. Obviously talk about your players as well. So for you guys, obviously, you know, you've got a bit of a generation gap, but it doesn't really matter. I think it's going to be quite fun. So for you, Gary, you know, what was your earliest West Ham memory?
My earliest memory was actually watching the 1975 FA Cup final against Fulham. I remember sitting on the chair there thinking, you know, I like West Ham, I like these colours, you know, this is the team for me.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, less than about a year later, West Ham were playing our local team over here is Charlton. They was playing Charlton in the League Cup match. My granddad being a Charlton fan, me all of a sudden becoming a West Ham fan, said, come on in, I'll take you over there and we'll go and watch Charlton v West Ham. It was a night game in September.
Wow.
At the time, the Valley held 66,000 fans. Only 2,000 were seats. But granddad being granddad, no, we're getting a seat, so we got us a seat. And on that night, if they reckon it was about 30,000 in the stadium, but I'll tell you something now, that stadium was full up. There's definitely more than 30,000. And I remember it cemented me being a West Ham fan, because everywhere I looked around that ground, there was West Ham fans.
Yeah,
it was all West Ham singing, all claret and blue scarves. I'm thinking, well, where's the Charlton fans? That's what I remember.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's been West Ham. And as time's gone on, as I've done like my family tree over the years, my family actually come from Tidal Basin. And great-great-grandfather worked at the Thames Iron Works, worked at the Tate and Lowell Sugar Factory. Yeah. And it turns out all my family were from West Ham. So, you know, it couldn't have turned out any better for me.
It was written in the stars, yeah, at an early age. Yeah, same with me. The story goes in my family that my great, we don't know how many greats, grandfather was actually a coach when the Thames Iron Works were an amateur team, apparently. So, you know, but I think everyone is, but that's how apparently our lineage. Similar to you, my parents, one was sort of, you know, from sort of East London. The other one was from, actually was sort of, you know, near Charlton, and had to get on under the Woolwich Tunnel all the time and stuff. So yeah, it's quite funny, isn't it, how it all sort of pans on. And what about you, Jonjo? Obviously, you know, your dad had quite a good pedigree, because, you know, sort of mid-70s, you know, that's a bit of a heyday period for West Ham. Unfortunately, you know, yourself and me probably got into the Hammers a bit too late to see FA Cup wins and European stuff. When was your first memory of West Ham, Jonjo?
My first ever memory was actually my first ever game, which was when we played Fulham, and Rio Ferdinand obviously scored that absolute worldie of a volley. Yeah, that was my first one. I just remember going into the ground for the first time, hearing bubbles for the first time, and I think from there I was just hooked. Yeah. And yeah, it was great to see all the players out. Great to see football actually in person instead of behind a screen, you know. But yeah, that was my first one.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, your old man's a West Ham fan, so it's sort of like, you know, ingrained a little bit,
it
isn't
was
it?
in the family.
Yes,
I'm the reason he's so depressed now.
It's all your fault, Gary. It's all your fault. So, but what about together? Well, obviously, you know, so since sort of then onwards, obviously, you know, we look at you to get together as a partnership, so to speak. You know, what was your sort of your fondest memories together, as sort of seeing West Ham, or maybe some of the stuff of the charity work, Jonjo, someone you met, or anything like that? Anything sort of sticks out?
Well, if I just say this, for me, it wasn't actually a West Ham game. although it was one of my all-time heroes, we got invited down to Swindon Town by Paolo's manager. Paolo had just lost his dad, heard about what Jonjo was doing at West Ham for cancer research, and thought it would be uplifting for Paolo to see a young man who does so much for cancer charities. So we went down there, and we had a picture taken with Paolo on the pitch before the game, and he said to me and Jonjo, he said, "Wait after the game." He said, "I'll come out and see you." So this is a midweek game on a school night. Jonjo's about 10. You can imagine, we're down in Swindon, miles from home. And game finishes, they win 2-0. Paolo's out on the pitch celebrating, blah, blah, blah. Does all his interviews, and me and Jonjo, hour after the game, standing by the tunnel, and the security guard come out and said, "You know, what are you doing?" So I said, "Paolo said to wait, he's going to meet us." He went, "Yeah, all right." He said, "Come on, son." He said, "Yeah, you got to go home now. There's no one else here." As we were about to go, bang, the doors come flying open. It's Paolo. "Oh, Jonjo," he says, "come on, come." So we went and sat in his office, his manager's office, drinking red wine, reminiscing about West Ham for an hour, sitting on his couch in his manager's office at Swindon Town.
How cool!
And for me, we've met quite a few West Ham players. Yeah. I've got heroes, but that hour was just unbelievable. Telling us his special goals, who he got on with, who he didn't get on with, which is a secret. But for me, that was the best thing I've ever encountered. I don't know about Jonjo, but that was for me.
What about you, Jonjo? That's a pretty awesome thing to do, though. That's quite.
It's incredible, yeah. But for me personally, my fondest memory has to be the last game at Upton Park. Yeah. It was just the whole build up to it. I know I shouldn't say this, but I actually didn't go to school that day. I think it was a Tuesday. And I must have been at the ground at about midday, and I think the game went till like 9:45 or 8 o'clock or something like that. And we just walked around for the last time, seeing all the landmarks, seeing Nathan, seeing the bowling, seeing the champion statue. Yeah. For the last time, and then to go into the game and win the way that we did, it was really the cherry on top, to be honest. Yeah. And I agree. I mean, I think I was on jury service that week, and they had it was that my case was deferred until the afternoon, so I drove up there early and just literally spent 3 hours walking around the ground, because obviously I had my pass, and at that place no one stopped you. A bit different now at London Stadium, but the old girl, no one stopped you, so I literally walking around it. It was just the whole day that was. And I liked driving home. Actually, it was sad driving home, thinking I'm never going to do this drive again. But then seeing all these fans with like 12-foot billboards, which they'd nicked from, like ripped off the wall, they're walking, and how are they going to get on the train home? I didn't know, but they had these massive billboards. It was a great day. It was a great game. All right, that's brilliant. And I tell you what, that Palace story, I think trumps it all, Gal, to be honest. I haven't heard a better one, to be honest.
A great night. I've never forgot it. He even gave Jonjo some training kit that was too big for Jonjo. We got home about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm putting the training kit on, taking pictures of myself. I'm like, Paolo's training kit. I was wearing it.
Yeah, awesome.
A bit tight here and there, but yeah. But what a great bloke he was as well. Yeah. And he's still a huge West Ham. Has a great affiliation with the fans, which is amazing for someone who I call sort of I call them a sort of an adopted Cockney. He's not from around these parts, but he got the fans, and there's a few like that, particularly from a foreign player. That's particularly rare. But no, he was a great man. Right, okay, let's go and talk about your 11s. I think it's going to be quite funny, the two of you. So we're going to do separate 11s. You're going to really test my video editing skills, but we'll have a go. We try and keep it to a 4-4-2 if we can, particularly today, because I think I'm fine to do it all. The second rule is you have to have been alive to have seen them play. So obviously, myself and Jonjo, for example, we couldn't put in Bobby Moore, but we could put in, I don't know, Gary Breen, or someone like that. I don't know, Javier Margas, whoever. And the third one is it's your 11. So you can talk about whoever you want to talk about. It doesn't have to necessarily be the best players. It could be your favourite players, or maybe your worst players, or
players you felt sorry for. It doesn't really matter who you want to talk about, but the ones that meant something to you, whether it's positive or negative. So it should be quite funny, I think, the two of you. We'll do it in turns. We'll do like goalkeeper, left, stuff like that. So if we let's go for Gary first, right? Who's going to be in goal for you, Gary? Who's going to be in goal for the Gary 11?
Okay, so you can imagine there's been a lot of goalkeepers in my lifetime, and there's been some good ones as well. There's been some great goalkeepers, that played for England. But the goalkeeper I've gone for, who in my opinion should have played for England, and he didn't at the time, he was the world's most expensive goalkeeper.
Yep.
So I'm going to say Phil Parkes.
Yeah.
I remember a young lad at school, all my mates were Arsenal fans, Liverpool fans, you name it, this, that. But West Ham bought the world's most expensive goalkeeper.
Exactly, yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. And basically, he played his heart out for West Ham. Yeah. Loves the club to this day. Hands like shovels. For me, my best goalkeeper, Phil Parkes.
Yeah. Great shout.
If he's got a better one than me,
that's the thing. This is a perfect microcosm of this whole idea when I envisaged it. You're going to get guys like Jonjo's age, you get guys like my age and guys like Gary's age. So you'll have these sort of, with this, and also, others, slightly older ones and obviously slightly younger ones as well. So it's perfect because that's the idea. Everyone has different opinions for who their sort of reference points. We put Parkes in goal for Gary's 11. Jonjo, who have in between the sticks for you, man?
Well, in my time of being a West Ham fan, we haven't really won anything yet. But for me, my favourite keeper has to be Fabianski.
Yep.
I just think that Fabianski is such a consistent player. He's never really, excluding the Liverpool game that we just had recently, he's never really had much of a problem in goal. He's been a brick wall at times. He's won us games at times, so he's got to be my number one for me.
Yeah. And there's not many West Ham goalkeepers who have been part of a team that hasn't lost for 3.5 months.
That's right.
Exactly, yeah.
That's right.
No, yeah.
Fabianski, a good, very, very good goalkeeper. But as I say, Phil Parkes for me.
Yeah.
The man loves West Ham. To this day, he loves West Ham. He's still over there from time to time. Not so much now.
No.
But I think when he was at West Ham, didn't he also do that advert for the hair lacquer?
The Cossack. Yeah, Cossack hair,
yeah. That's it. Yeah, so, best goalkeeper West Ham ever had, in my opinion.
Yep. Okie dokie. Parkes in fab for Jonjo. Let's go left back. Let's go Jonjo first. Who are we going for left back for you, Jonjo?
For me, it's probably going to be Aaron Cresswell.
Yep.
An odd shout, but I think when we had him at his debut season, when we signed him from Ipswich, he won Hammer of the Year, didn't he? I think.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal, and to be honest with you, he hasn't been perfect now, but I think he's another one of them players that's been quite consistent. He's not just a left back though. He can also attack and put crosses into the box. When we had Carroll, he was notorious for doing that, putting crosses in the box of Carroll. I just think he's an all-round defender, but he can also go forward and attack and put crosses into the box. Yeah,
and obviously when Moisey played three at the back, he was part of one of those three, wasn't he? And so he said he's been around for a few years, more than people realise, I think, when he came from Ipswich. And great shout, Cresswell. Okay, let's whack him in. Gary, who are we going for you? Your left back.
It's going to be another John Lyall signing.
Yeah.
Young lad coming to the side. If it wasn't for his disciplinary record, I think we all know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
He also would have played a lot more for England. Definitely gave his all for West Ham. Sometimes a bit too much at times, but that's what West Ham's all about, isn't it? Giving your heart and soul. Yeah. Julian Dix. Yeah. Who's better than Julian Dix at left back in my lifetime? All right, you had Frank Lampard Senior, did very, very well. But Julian Dix, he just had that something about him. He got the crowd going, didn't he? So Julian Dix for me.
And there's not, as we said it before on the channel, there's not many left backs or full backs at all who can galvanise a crowd as much as Julian Dix did. It might be a naughty tackle, or it could have been a 35-yard pinger, or a penalty, or something like that. But he could conduct the game and the crowd from left back. And again, you can't see Gary Neville doing that or someone like that, So Dixie, good shout. Let's stick with you, Gary, and go for your right back.
Best right back I've seen at West Ham. He'd have a bit of competition with Julian for the penalty taker here.
Yeah.
Ray Stewart.
Yeah.
I remember again, Ray Stewart was come to West Ham as a young lad. I think he might have even been a teenager at the time. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And Ray Stewart, for me, when he hit a penalty, if he didn't break the net, he was going to break the net. Do you know what I mean? He just, I don't think he missed many either.
No.
3 penalties, I think he missed in his West Ham career. I can't remember. But Ray Stewart, for me, tough tackler. When he passed the ball, it was 100 mile an hour, and so Ray Stewart for me, great right back. Shame he got injured because he could have played a few more years for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Ray Stewart for me. Ray Stewart.
Yeah, and obviously still turns up at the club quite a bit.
He does, yeah.
We get on. Still can't understand a word he says, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. He stays local to us actually. He stays in Sika, not far from us. He stays in over this side.
He's always really, really well turned out as well. You know what I mean? He's always got a really nice suit on as well. But still can't understand what he says.
Nice man as well.
Yeah, lovely guy. Right, we'll put Ray Stewart in for Gary's team. Jonjo, who you got at right back?
For me at right back, I mean, we've always had that problem with right backs since I started going anyway. We had like Carl Jenkinson, we had Tompkins at right back at the time, Antonio. But to be honest with you, I mean, if he was in his City days at West Ham, he'd be phenomenal. I think that Zabaleta's probably one of the most solid right backs in the league, really. I mean, if he was a bit younger, he'd be right up there. He's a team player. He dives into tackles. He puts his body on the line. I mean, I don't really think there's any better right backs in my time than him, to be honest. No,
and also the pedigree he brings to the team, doesn't he? You know, I mean, he's won how many goddamn trophies when he was at City and stuff, and that winning mentality. You know, it's not something that we're blessed with at West Ham. Players who've won stuff. You know, Fabianski went down and then we signed him, and so having that, and I think he's, he seems to have, and hopefully, with Ben Johnson coming through and people like that, that sort of level of expertise and experience, you can't teach that, and so I think he's obviously got the end of this year contract whenever the season finishes, but I'd love him to stay for like a little bit, for 6 months or something as a coach, just to nurture sort of the up and coming sort of youth left backs and right backs and stuff, because we haven't got that in the team. We haven't got that in the coaching staff, that sort of winning mentality. People who have won Premier League titles, who have won FA Cups. And I think he's a great guy, Zab, and he seems to be a really good teammate to have around, particularly at this time, when no one's been around. They're all back in the training ground. It seems like they're all buzzing, which is quite good. And Zab and Nolan and Mark Noble, they seem to be the guys who are, getting all the buzz around, which is fantastic. Okay, that's great. I'm loving this. Let's stay with Jonjo. Let's go centre back. So who's your first centre back, Jonjo? My
first centre back is a Diop. I think that, Mourinho said it best himself. He's a monster. He's so dominant. I remember his tackle last year on Harry Kane when we all thought that Kane was going to put it in the back of the net.
Yeah.
And he just put his body on the line. I like players that do that. And he's very dominant in the air. I mean, he scored a few goals for us as well. And I think it comes back to consistency at the end of the day. He's been very solid. He's a good distributor of the ball as well. So, that's my first centre back.
Yeah, and as you said, he's been consistent. And, they had a little blip. And I think they found the right partnership with him and Obona. They seem to complement each other well. I've always been a fan of Balbuena, though. I just have that. Because he's like the old school defender, not necessarily a ball player, but a blocker, and sort of a lot of my sort of the guys I looked up to now at centre backs, they were blockers. They weren't necessarily, Rio pinged the ball, but like someone like Alvin or Tony Gale, they were like solid, weren't they? And Balbuena's got that solidness about him. But Diop, as you said, Mourinho, he's obviously now at Tottenham, and when it was at Man United, he was a sniff around for him as well. So, but I think he's a good player, and hopefully, he's the type of person we need, particularly when everything kicks back up, because he is quality on his day. He is quality. Right, brilliant. John, let's go for your other centre backs. Let's go for both centre backs, then we'll do your dad for both centre backs as well.
I've actually gone for James Tompkins here.
Yeah.
Bit of an odd shout, but to be honest with you, I think we sold him at the completely wrong time. He was a very good player for us in his last season, and once again, he was a very solid player. He scored a lot of goals. He was very commanding at the back line as well. I remember him pointing and shouting a lot when he was with us, and He's been a very good player at Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace fans love him, and it's clear to see why. He's just a very consistent, well-rounded centre-back.
Exactly, and he still gets a good clap when he comes back, doesn't he? So that's always my sort of litmus test of if players come back. And it's testimony to how they've left, because some people leave the right way, some people leave the wrong way. He left the right way, and people still, because he's one of ours, because he was he's sort of one of our own. He has that sort of, people still give him a good clap. And it was a reliable player when he came in. When he fitted in at right back sometimes. You need that in a team and a squad. And I think Tompkins, you were right. We sort of typically as soon as we sold him, we needed him. It's always the way, So it's like with Adrian, and we sort of we'll let him go. It's all right. We know Fabianski won't get injured. We've got what? Okay, Fabianski's out. Okay, no problems. We always seem to do things, and then next week someone gets injured. But JT, West Ham boy, nice one. Okay, great. Gary, let's go for your centre backs. So we got in your centre backs.
Okay, my first choice is Rio Ferdinand.
Yep.
Remember when he came into the side, young lad, and he just had something about him. He was just a fantastic player. So confident on the ball for such a young man.
Yep.
And it was odds on that he was going to go elsewhere. And you're not going to stop someone from doing it, are you? But Rio Ferdinand for me was a great young player, plenty of talent. You knew he was going to play for England. Compared to Bobby Moore, they compared the similar style, cool on the ball, good passing, good tackler. So Rio Ferdinand, my first choice for centre back.
That's great. Yeah, as a Rolls Royce Rio, as how we used to call him. I mean, you're right. It's like there's certain players if they're like from the academy, they get on the pitch and you're thinking it's brilliant, but they just the nature of the club. We're not like a Premier League chasing team yet. Fingers crossed. But these players at that time particularly, because we had this conveyor belt. And you went, well, that's the next one. It's like when Glenn Johnson turned up. You go, well, he's going to be off soon. You can tell because we're team in relegation and stuff like that. But Rolls Royce Rio, good show. Who's going to partner Rio then, Gary?
Well, this player, oh dear, he brings a tear to my eye sometimes because he just does. He's got a heart of gold. Loves the club. He's had a few positions at the club. Started off at right back, I think.
Yeah.
I think Ron Greenwood put him at centre back after Bobby Moore left. I might be wrong there. He played in the cup final against Arsenal at the back in the middle, and he lifted the trophy. Billy Bonds.
Yeah, exactly.
Billy Bonds, Billy Bonds, absolute fantastic man again. Nice man. If ever you've met him, beautiful man. West Ham through and through. And he's from this side as well.
I say, from your neck of the woods anyway. He never moved, did he? So there's something about these Kent Hammers. I don't know what it is. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, famously, he never had a mobile phone. I think he might have one now, but he never used to have a mobile phone.
Still ain't got one. When his wife goes to Blue Water, he goes to a hotel not far from there, and he'll be in there having just a pint, waiting for her. No mobile phone. Fantastic.
I know.
I might try that.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember sort of the last game at West Ham, and he was going to be in one of the taxis, and then because of all the trouble, he said no, because at the end of the day, it's his family. He's like, didn't know what was going on, so he turned around and came back. And obviously, he never mobile phone, so it's like we found out sort of towards the end of the game that Billy Bonds wasn't going to be turning up. We're like, what? Okay, who can we throw in that taxi instead? And but such a humble man, and you saw how much the club meant to him when when we did the stand, and we named it after him, and just a sheer emotion coming out of him for a man who's, even when we got promoted in '92, that was sort of my era. Never really saw him sort of like cry with happiness. He wasn't a particularly emotional person, but just to see him like absolutely bawl his eyes out, when he, it was just so. There's a lot of fans there who had something in their eye, I'm pretty sure, because there was not a dry eye in the house when he was doing that. Bless him. Right, lovely. And it's nice because we've got two different eras, so you've got two different teams. It's really cool. Right, let's go, Gary. Let's go left wing for you, Gary. We've got on the left wing.
Left wing. I actually changed my mind this morning. I did have someone in mind, and he was an exceptional player, but unfortunately he left on sour terms. So on that basis, he got the elbow. A bit of a snake he was. I won't say who
He
he
was, yeah, I'm sure.
But no, I've gone for Alan Devonshire.
Yep.
Same again. Today we don't seem to have as many players that are going to stay at the club for a long while. And they gave it 100%. Not that our players don't, but in today's football, 2 or 3 years, you've got a good deal out of someone, and then they're often getting another deal somewhere.
Yeah.
So my team is totally different to Jonjo's, but Alan Devonshire on the left, what an absolute fantastic player again, going down that wing. I remember him at Wembley against Arsenal, putting that ball across. Another guy was at Chelsea once at Stamford Bridge. He scored an absolute blinder.
Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah.
So then that sticks in your mind. So he's for me the left of midfield. And how could I put that snake over him anyway? No, Alan Devonshire for me.
Exactly, and he only cost $5,000, whereas the snake cost 20 million, something like that. So, but also there's a good point about you saying about the about players don't hang around a lot like they used to. I was interviewing Tony Gale yesterday, and for the channel, it'll be up in a few days' time, and we were talking about that. And his testimonial year, there was actually 11, I think, or 10 testimonial years he had, like in succession. It was him, Jeff Pike, and I can only remember Mark Noble's, in recent history, and unfortunately, the testimonial, so to speak, is something which I think is a dying thing. To be honest, it's very rare. I think Vincent Kompany had one for Man City, but it's people move on. It's just the nature of the sport. But you're right. You don't get that sort of level of testimonials anymore now. It's very rare that a player stays, he said, more than sort of 3 or 4 years before they move on. Okay, we'll put Dev for you. Jonjo, who should we have on the left for you?
Oh, you're not going to like this one, but it's got to be Dimitri. It has to be.
Yeah.
He's, what more else can I say about him in that 2015-16 season? He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
He was one of the most exciting players, and probably is the most exciting player I've ever watched.
Yeah.
Playing a West Ham shirt, the things that he done with the football. I mean, I've never even seen this with a player before, but every time he got a free kick, I used to say to myself, this is going in.
Yeah.
It's going to go in. Every time he had a free kick, it was either going in or it was on target. It was incredible. Yeah. And then obviously, not to mention that he was in the Ballon d'Or shortlist as well. And got player of the tournament in the Euros with us as well for France, and then sadly moved on. So.
Then it moves on, yeah. So it always happens. But you said there's not many Ballon d'Or nominees have played for West Ham while playing for West Ham. And as you said, watching those Euros when he was, the player of the tournament, and he played for West Ham, it was like, fuck, this is mental. And I think you're right for that. In that season, that 2015, the stars aligned. You had the right manager. It was obviously all the history and the end of the year of being at the bowling, and you had Payet and this little stumpy French bloke who was nothing of him really, was just took the Premier League by storm that season, and even the FA Cup. I remember his goal against Blackburn away. That was his game. He was dominant the whole time. And for me, I'm similar to you, Jonjo. There's probably he's one of the 2 best technical players I've seen at West Ham. The other one we've already mentioned, and I'm pretty sure obviously the other one. But for me, he was up there. Payet was just for technical, in terms of technical ability, not necessarily for character, but you get that with a lot of these players, don't you? The ones who are the sort of the mercurial players, the mesmeric players, they take their toys and go away, after a couple of seasons. And that's how he came to us as well. People forget about that. He took his dummy and ran from Marseille to come to us, and then he did the same to go back to them. So it is what it is. You got to just take it, unfortunately. Right. Okay. So we'll put Payet on the left for you, Jonjo. Who's going to go on the right for you, Jonjo?
On the right-hand side, or the way that I planned it, I was doing 4-4-2, but more of a narrow, if you get what I mean.
Don't worry.
I put Felipe Anderson out there.
Yeah.
I think that in his debut season with us anyway, last year, he was phenomenal. I mean, exciting to watch. The goal that he scored against Man U last year, I mean, I don't think anyone would really have the confidence to do that.
No.
He was brilliant. He was consistent as well, but for some reason, I mean, this year he's kind of, I wouldn't say lost his touch, but he's not really been as involved in the game as he was.
Well, I think he might be. I think for him, I think last year he came obviously with a price tag, but he was still a bit of an unknown quantity. Unless you were a Serie A or you're a FIFA man, you probably wouldn't necessarily know who he was, to be perfectly honest. Whereas, I think it might have got to him the pressure this season. But who knows? Maybe in closed stadiums, it'll be, it could be his resurgence. I think that was going to happen for a lot of people. Some players don't play well under pressure. Having a closed door, no fans, it's almost like the pressure's off a little bit. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, Anderson, he's a quality player. On his day, he's brilliant. But again, it's finding his right position, isn't it? It's where, it was very similar when we had Joe Cole. We played him sort of as almost like a free role. We don't get the free role anymore now in football. You get left wingers cutting inside and right wingers, and I think Anderson would be quite nice in that free role. But then you've got Lanzini, potentially got Fornals in that position as well, and you've got some very similar types of people who could play in that position. But yeah, Anderson, nice shout. Gary, who's going to go right wing for you, man?
Well, unlike Jonjo, my right-sided midfield player likes to tackle.
Okay.
Really tough tackler. Not the biggest bloke. I remember him putting someone in the chicken run once. I can't remember who it was. But Mark Ward.
Yeah, Waldy.
Oh, yeah. What a player.
Yeah.
Same again, he wasn't the biggest bloke, was he? 5 foot, whatever.
Sorry,
he could get down that wing and he could put those balls into the box,
Yeah.
And that was the West Ham way, wasn't it? Go down the wing, balls into the box, near post, someone get onto it and put it in the back of the net.
Yeah.
Today's football, we don't see many wingers,
no,
do you?
You don't at all.
You don't see it.
No, they're playing on the wrong feet.
A player like him today at West Ham, over there, that would get the crowd going. Do you know what I mean? It's all right, all these little fancy touches. You want to see someone have a go, don't you?
That's why I think Bowen, I can see being, although he cuts inside, he's got natural. He's a bit like Antonio, Antonio's like really, really quick, and Bowen's but he's got to touch him as well. Yeah. And I think he's that old school winger, but obviously he'll cut inside. And you're right. I mean, in the modern game, we put the left wingers on the right wingers on the left, so they cut inside and score goals with their favoured foot. But actually, there's something so simple about football. In my era, obviously, you had people. I mean, I was a little bit after Mark Ward. I had, the Stewart Slaters and Matty Effingtons and Stan Azarides and people like that. And Matty Rush, and all they would do is literally, you're right, knock the ball past the defender, hit the byline, cross it in. It's such a simple game, it can be. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's like it's a different culture now how it works. Let's start with you, Gary. Let's go to your centre midfield. Who are we going to be in your centre midfield? Let's have both of them, and then we'll go to John.
First one was my hero as a lad growing up, Trevor Brooking.
Yeah.
Oh, Trevor Brooking, mate. Same again. When you was a kid at school, and England played in the whatever they was playing in. And West Ham were represented by Trevor Brooking. And he just had this... He was so silky on the pitch, wasn't he? He could put balls through to Kevin Keegan. Him and Keegan actually had quite a good partnership because I think between them, they used to have a few assists between them and goals between them. And I think Keegan used to room with Trevor, if memory serves me right. But Trevor Brooking, for me, was just such a skillful player. I think in his early days, he wasn't a centre midfielder. I think he might have been like a right winger or something, and it didn't work out for him. And he got moved into centre midfield by would have been Ron Greenwood, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then that's when he started to take off. His passing ability, putting balls in corners and things like that. For me, he was just a fantastic player. Imagine having someone like him at West Ham now.
Exactly. You got to think about the sort of the boggy pitches that were around in the 70s, rather than these sort of bowling green pit. He could have been amazing.
I mean, when you think about it, what would he have been worth today?
Yes, exactly. Same as Dev. Dev was $5,000. $5,000 from Solihull. It's like, what would he be worth in today's money? It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So he's my attacking centre midfielder.
Nice. And who's going to partner Trev in that midfield then?
Well, some of the youngsters will be saying, who are all these players? Because I'm picking quite a few players from my era. But this player, he gives 100% for West Ham. I don't think you'll ever see another player at West Ham to give the service that this player's given. I'm going to say.
Yeah.
He's the nicest.
Inspector.
Well. he's the nicest bloke as well. He's done a lot for Jonjo as well. Mark Noble.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic bloke. And he literally would die for West Ham.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I like about that. Don't matter if you don't matter how, you know, technical ability. Mark's okay. He's a good tackler. He's a good passer. Right, he's not going to set the Premier League on fire, but he just does that thing for me where he shows 100% for West Ham.
Yeah, I know.
You know, I sometimes get annoyed when I'm over at West Ham. When people go, "Oh, Mark, Mark." No, Mark's sort of West Ham through and through. He's supposed to be a bigger supporter than any of us, and he's got the privilege of wearing the shirt. So no one's going to give more than him. Yeah. So he's still playing today, and I hope he plays for a couple more years and gives his all again. Because for me, Mark Noble, fantastic effort. And, for me, another West Ham through and through.
Yeah, no, exactly, and you're right. I mean, you know, if anything, I think, you know, I remember, you know, probably maybe in the Slav era, beginning of the Slav era, everyone thought he was gone. His legs were gone, weren't he? He was like 60 minute mark basically. He was always off after 60 minutes, because that's when Slav would do his substitutions. And then the emergence of Declan Rice has seen this sort of resurgence of Mark Noble as a player, because, you know, Dec's doing all the donkey work, so to speak. Mark can have a little bit more time on the ball, and I mean, when he's not in the team sheet, I'm always a bit worried. Just I am, just because I don't think there's that leadership, and it's not just the West Hamers, it's the leadership. It's a quality which I think is being not drummed out, but isn't around very often now amongst teams. You know, you'll see, you know, there was that big issue, you know, in Arsenal. I mean, they're still crap, but, you know, after sort of Vieira and Petit and people left, they were sort of leaders, you know, and then they were soulless, really. And I think, you know, there's not that type of captain, that type of leader around it much. You know, obviously I think John Terry's and even Kevin Nolan and, you know, Scott Parker, they had that sort of real sort of assumption that they would die for the club. You know, Mark would, just because it's Mark. And I think Mark's one of those people who, when he hangs up his boots, he'll be a coach. He'll be, you know, direct. You know, he'll be staying at the club, because he will be a one-man club. Like, you know, in my era, he's my Billy Bonds, really, because Billy Bonds was Billy Bonds. He was Mr. West Ham. You know, I had Steve Potts, but Mark Noble is the one who epitomises West Ham for me. That's for sure. And to be partnered in that team with Trev and Dev and Wardy, it's an accolade of how much influence he's had on the West Ham fan base. And she said he would die for the club, and as you said, you know, he does loads of stuff for you guys as well. So he does, and he's just a lovely bloke. And he's basically, to be honest, if you had to think of a captain, he's got nice hair. You know, he turns it nicely turned out. He just looks like a West Ham boy, doesn't he? Like, going out on a Saturday night, he just looks really cool. He never have a hair out of place. A bit like Steve Potts, never a hair out of place. Right, okay, let's go for Jonjo's centre midfield. Who's your first centre midfield then, Jonjo?
Okay, so the first one's probably one of the brightest young talents in English football. It's got to be Declan Rice.
Yeah.
He's arguably one of the top holding midfielders in the league, if not the country. He'll only get better with age as well. I think that we really do need to fight to keep him as well, because I believe that it can only be a matter of time where he's going to start wanting to win things, win trophies, or possibly play with Mason Mount, like he says. It's only a matter of time until he has to consider that and possibly move on. So we should really try and fight.
Would Mason Mount get West Ham's team though? Of course. If Mason Mount comes to West Ham, then he can play with Declan, can't he?
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. We just buy Mason Mount. Simple, isn't it?
I don't know. I would be able to get the transfer funds for that.
Well, you know, I mean, the thing is, the way I see it, you know, we've had, you know, in that sort of period, we had sort of Scott Parker. Scott Parker then Mark Noble was the understudy to Scott Parker, and now Mark Noble and then Declan Rice is the understudy to Mark Noble. So, you know, there's been a nice sort of progression of that sort of position. And yeah, if Dec stays, he'll be West Ham captain. He will be, because he's like, you know, and as you said, he's like a shining light. And yeah, it may mean, you know, eventually fuck it, let's go and buy Mason Mount. Yeah, we'll have a whip round, and we'll back together. 60,000 of us. Chip in each would be all right. But no, he's a great player, isn't he? And I just hope he stays for a long time. And I don't know whether he'll end up staying in defensive midfield or whether he will move back into the centre back position. Who knows? Who knows? But at present, he's the best defensive midfield player, I think, in the league. That's for sure. And to get recognised for England, again, you haven't had many England regulars who play for West Ham at the same time. I'm thinking like Trevor Sinclair, Rob Green for a bit, Ashton before he did his leg in. We haven't had that, and so it's quite nice to have an England regular in the squad. Who's going to partner Deck in your team then, Jonjo, in midfield?
I mean, for me, it's kind of a no-brainer. It has to be Mark. He knows what it means to play for West Ham, fights for the badge, one club man. I mean, these days you don't really see a one club man anymore. No doubt about it. It has to be him in partnership with him. I couldn't think of any other midfielders to partner up with Deck at the moment anyway.
No, exactly. You're totally right. And and they complement each other quite well as a pairing, I think. As a Deck does all the donkey work, Mark can do a little bit more of the quarterback type role, sort of dictating the pace a little bit. And I think, Well, we'll get another couple of seasons out of Mark, that's for sure. I'm pretty sure. Right, okay, let's go strikers. Let's go for your strikers first, Jonjo. Then we'll go for Gary's strikers to finish off.
So my name in both, yeah?
Yeah, go on, why not?
Okay, so my first one's a bit of an odd shout as well. But it's actually Diafra Sakho.
Yep.
Bit of an odd one, but same really with consistency. I mean, every time he got the ball, he scored.
Yeah.
I mean, we had that famous chant with him, and every time he sung it, he scored.
Yeah.
So, he was brilliant. Same again, I mean, his personality, he had a bit of a problem with that. But, yeah, he was brilliant. I mean, when he was with Valencia as well, I mean, they had a mad partnership together. They worked so well off each other, and sadly, they've both moved on now.
Exactly.
And
he was quite cheap.
Has to be, Marko Arnautovic.
Yeah.
You've got to be mine. I could easily picture in my mind what it'd be like to have Sakho and Arnautovic together as a front two. Sakho running off Marko, or vice versa. They're both quick and powerful players. With Marko, every time he kicked the ball, he scored as well. He had a bit of a blip before. I mean, with Bilic and Moyes came in, provided excellent man management, turned him into the player that he was. Yeah. But same again with attitude. He thought he was kind of bigger than the club and decided to leave. So. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, and as you said, the whole thing when obviously when he signed, everyone thought we got a good player here, and then he was stuck out on the wing, really, on the right, really, wasn't he? Where Moyes sort of pushed him up front, really, and again, it's very similar. Parallels. I mean, Gary would attribute this that when we got Tevez, and he was like not useless, but he didn't do anything for the first few months, and then he went into a position like where he wasn't having to run about everywhere, and he stayed up front. And for that 6 months, he kept us up. Basically, he was mesmeric, and that's the similar with Arnautovic. It's just he's buying players and putting them in the right position. It's quite a simple. Again, it's just saying to Gary, it's quite a simple game, football. You buy players and put them in the right position, rather than trying to be clever and put people on the wrong wings, or you put strikers in sort of just off the strikers. People have a position they're best played at. Put them in that position, and the team will play better because the players are happy. And as you said, with Marko, he had a bit of a, strange leaving to us, similar to Payet. But again, similar players, mesmerically brilliant on their day, but they could throw their prams out their toys and they weren't happy. And that's what you got. Again, that's sort of unfortunately what comes with these types of players. Right, Gary, let's go for your strikers. Who are we having up front for you?
First one is Frank McAvenny.
Yeah.
He just scored goals, didn't he?
Yeah.
Scored goals. In his first spell at West Ham, more so than the second spell, even though he did score hat-trick on his last ever game. But in his first spell at West Ham, in that boys of 86, him and Tony Cotty up front, I mean, them two banged in so many goals.
Yeah.
We almost won a title that year. A couple of more wins, we'd have had that. But, Frank McAvenny just had this thing about him. You put the ball through one-on-one, you just knew he was going to score.
Yeah, it's true.
And then he went up to Celtic and banged loads of goals in for them. And then when he had the chance to come back down to London between us and Arsenal, the big boys, you know, and he said, no, I'm going to West Ham. He still wanted to come back to West Ham. Tells you something. He had West Ham in his blood, and he still has to play.
It does.
And that's why I've picked him. I want these players in my team. If I'm going to be a manager of a team, pick 11 players, I want them to give all 100%. Yeah. And he's another one. You give all for West Ham. So he's my first centre forward.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I think, and speaking the other day, they were talking about the boys of '86, and Tony Cottee made a point that there's something like 17 records they still hold, like club records, like most away wins, most home wins, most goals scored by a duo. You know, it's incredible how top that season was. You know, we talk about the boys of '86, but how, you know, it's still like one of the most, well, it is the most successful season we've had at West Ham. Some 20 or 30 years on, you know, so it made such an impact on sort of the history books for West Ham. But who's going to partner McAvenny up front then, Gary?
Well, we've been talking to boys of '86, and it would have been far too obvious for me to pick Tony Cottee, even though the pair of them were brilliant together, you know, and sorry to Tony for not picking him. But I've got to go with Paolo.
Yeah.
You know, what a fantastic player he was on his day. You know, he just got you going, didn't he? When he got the ball, he was just doing special things, wasn't he? You know, why can't we have a Paolo today, eh? God, dear.
He was an entertainer, wasn't he? He was an entertainer. You know, he was really what football was about. Yeah, football is a sport. But we know we're not going to win the leagues. We go to be entertained, don't we? That's what we want to do. And as you said, as long as someone's putting it, okay, maybe not for Paolo, but, you know, for the majority, if they're putting in, like, you know, running after lost balls, putting crunching tackles in, seeing that dying for their shirt, that's enough for most West Ham fans. Paolo was just box office. You know, you'd buy a season ticket just to watch him. You know, he was, you know, that sort of. I was talking to someone the other day, and they asked me about Paolo Di Canio, and I found him a link to the Bradford City game, and I was like, it was extended highlights. I said, just watch it, because that is Paolo. He would, you know, want to be substituted because he was being kicked. He'd sit on the ball, he'd strop, he'd then go and score a goal, he'd then fight with Frank Lampard for the penalty, and that was Paolo. That was Paolo, and the man loved the club, and he still loves the club today. And as you said, but he had that skill, you know, some sort of other midfielders and forwards who played for us didn't have, but he had that passion, and that's what West Ham wants, passion, don't we? We wouldn't do well with, like, you know, 11 players who were sort of 6 out of 10 every game. That's not the West Ham way. The West Ham way is to have someone like Paolo who's 8, 9 out of 10 for 3 games running, and then he's like 2 out of 10 because we're playing away to Watford or something like that, and he don't fancy it that day. Yeah. But that was Paolo, wasn't it? And he was absolutely brilliant. And as you said, he's a lovely guy, and what he did for you at the Swindon stuff was absolutely phenomenal.
Well, that day when we was down at Swindon, we went up to his office afterwards, and the first thing he'd done when we got in the office, he actually went down on his knees and started bowing to Jonjo. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, no, we bow to you, do you know what I mean? But because of what he'd seen John do,
of course,
he did the bowing, and we actually got a picture of Paolo bowing to Jonjo in his manager's office, you know.
So cool.
He was, and away from everybody in that closed room, he was the most sincere gentleman. Yeah. You wouldn't. Some of the things you saw on TV with Paolo at the games and everything, and we was in there with him, and he was such a sincere gentleman. Do you know what I mean? He made sure that the heat was on. Are you warm enough? Do you want some wine? And he got all his pictures out. He had a drawer at his table. Manager of Swindon, and he sat there and he got the wine. And we sat there and he said, "Hey, look at this, look at this." And he pulled the drawer open. He pulled out all these photos and spread them across his desk, and every one was a West Ham photo. Wow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the chairman come in at the time, the chairman of Swindon, he came in, and I said to him, how did you get him to come to Swindon, you know? He said, I'm a West Ham fan. The chairman at the time was a West Ham fan, and he got Paolo down to Swindon.
Brilliant.
But yeah, Paolo Di Canio, another one. Most of my players I picked are West Ham through and through.
Yeah.
He's another one who, he's got the tattoo, he loves West Ham. I mean, he was on Sky Italia, he's got the West Ham tie on when he's commentating. When he plays foot golf, he's got the claret and blue on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Paolo Di Canio, absolutely
Yeah.
brilliant.
Well, I was talking to Nicky Hawkins from West Ham Fan TV doing one of these, and he did it because they do the events, don't they? They interview people, and I'm pretty sure it was Nicky, and he interviewed Paolo for one of these pre-match eventy things, and he came up, and Paolo was like in this immaculate. He was immaculate. I mean, he always turned out well, didn't he? But he had an immaculate suit on, like tie. He had obviously he was bronzed as he is with his beautiful glasses, and he goes. And like Nicky was like in the shirt, and he's oh, Paolo, yeah, what a lovely suit. He goes, I always dress up for my family, and that just said it. That was Paolo, and he just thinks it was his family. It's beautiful. Look, it's been great chatting to you two. We've got two very different teams, and I love it. You know, if FIFA could recreate this, it would be quite fun to see what happens. But yeah,
I'd win.
It's been brilliant, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And obviously, thank you to everyone else for watching. You know, like, share, subscribe, watch them all. And until next time, guys, from me, Gary and Jonjo, take care, stay safe. See ya. Bye-bye.
Yes.